We are officially 2 days away from the 53-man roster cutdown day in the NFL. Teams have already begun letting go of players, waiving players, and I don't believe as of this time any of that's happened with the Detroit Lions yet. By the time you're seeing this, that probably has happened, but I wanted to get out in front of this, hopefully, and do my final 53-man roster prediction. Of course, I don't want to see any of these guys get cut, but it's going to happen. There's going to be some very tough decision the Lions are going to have to make here across their roster, which in some ways is a very big positive because some players that were here in the past or that improved throughout preseason maybe got better by the end of preseason, took some really strong strides towards the finish line. Unfortunately, have plenty of injuries as well that could come in and factor into how many players the Lions keep by positions. You have players that are likely going to be kept on the 53, even though they're just not healthy because you don't want them out for the season. You can only do that with two players that you can put on return IR. So Lions are likely going to be bringing in multiple players that are currently injured and aren't going to be ready for week one, just because they're going to want to have the ability to have them available during the season. So this was really tough to go through this. I know this won't be 100% accurate. It probably won't be even that close to 100% accurate, but this is after watching the final preseason game, the All-22 yesterday, rewatching it again today, and just going off of what I think the Lions will do. Maybe there's a couple of spots where I would probably go a different direction. This is a prediction, so let's get right into it. We'll start off at the quarterback position first. Of course, probably the most talked about topic is going to be, do the Lions keep Hendon Hooker? And right now, I do not have the Lions keeping Hendon Hooker. Now, coming into this final preseason game, I thought they would keep Hendon on the 53, and I still wouldn't be surprised if they did. I know he didn't perform incredibly well. Obviously, there were some tough scenarios that he was put in, like the game before this past one, where he really didn't have much of an opportunity. The interception was, I don't want to call it fluky, but it was a heck of a play by the defense. This last game, though, was not a positive step in the right direction, unfortunately. I do think there's areas in which he's improved. The small little things I think have improved. I do think he can read the field and he understands coverages and where to get with the ball. Obviously, he's a heck of an athlete, but I just don't think there's been enough consistency when under duress. I feel like he's just been too impatient in a lot of those spots. It feels like things just happen too fast in those areas for him. Again, there's some unfortunate circumstances that happen that puts him in bad spots, like this last game, the third down shot, taking deep shot downfield. The read made sense, but it never got open to Ronnie Bell. Is like, in hindsight, kind of wish we didn't throw that pass. And it's limited opportunities. Now, again, the Lions will have practice to evaluate off of, and I know he's had some strong days in training camp, so the Lions could absolutely keep him on 53, and I would have no issue with it, to be honest. He's got another year left on his rookie deal. To me, I'd actually like to keep him around. I wouldn't want to jump off this early and just give him another year. I'm in really no rush with the quarterback at this point. There's nothing that I'm like, oh, he needs to be ready because he has to. Like, I'm fine with being patient with him. Just for numbers' sake, I didn't have him on the 53-man roster. That's my prediction. But again, if Lions keep him, I actually would have no problem with it whatsoever. And I think a case could be made for it. It's just that for me, that last preseason game just wasn't strong enough for me to feel comfortable with keeping him on the 53 as of now. At running back, it's the same four. Vaki's in there, even though he's dealing with an injury. It sounds like take longer specifically than Graham Glasgow, even though Graham Glasgow avoided a serious injury. So I don't know how long that actually means for Zione Vaki, but I believe they're going to keep him on the 53. He's an excellent special teamer, and he looked great when he did play. Just hoping to have him ready. Craig Reynolds, to me, is coming off his best performance of the preseason by a mile. I thought he was outstanding this past game, so that makes just a ton of sense there. Outside of that, really no surprises at the back position. I don't find a spot here for Jacob Saylor. It'd be cool to get him back on the practice squad, but I don't really see a spot, especially with how tight some of these position groups are. On to the tight end spot, we're just going to keep two, Sam Laporta and Brock Wright. I'm going to stick to my initial prediction here as well. I would like to keep Zach Corton. I do think he ran block well this past game specifically, even if he didn't grade that way. I love the tenacity that he played with as a blocker. I still think he brings a lot of special teams upside. But as of now, I think when you think about these other spots and who you may have to cut, and then could you potentially get him back if they go through the waiver wire, I would feel more comfortable getting back Shane/Zach Corton than some of these other spots. So I'm almost playing that game a little bit with this. So I'd like to keep one of those two. I'd really like to keep Zach Corton and his versatility, but I also believe we can get him back on the practice squad. Maybe not, but I do believe it's possible. He only had 2 receptions in the preseason. It was nice. He showed some hands, and I think Shane Zylstra had like 4 receptions. I definitely think we could get both of these guys back. At receiver, though, here's the first, well, I guess the second really tough decision that I had to make here. And I ended up going with Dominic Lovett as the 6th receiver, cutting Jackson Meeks. This is a difference because initially I had Jackson Meeks on the 53. Now I have him off the 53-man roster. I think if you cut either one of those guys, there's a really good chance you don't get them back. So you can make an argument that you keep 7 receivers because you don't want to lose any of them. That's fair. Right now, though, this is a little bit more into what I would do, and I would lean towards keeping Dominic Lovett for the long-term upside. Again, I don't expect Lovett or Jackson Meeks to really play that much this year if either of them make the team, especially if both of them make it. So because of that reason, I don't need necessarily immediate production, but you need special teams value. And I do think Lovett adds that as a gunner. I also thought he blocked really well this past week. I love that. And I thought his route running was very smooth for the most part, outside of really the interception where he was lashed up pretty well and kind of the over route the safety set on top of it. But I like the way that he ran routes this past weekend, the way that he blocked, and I still think he brings a lot of special teams value. So does Jackson Meeks, to be fair. He nearly downed one at the 1 yard line. So, either way there, you're going to have a tough decision to make. Do you keep neither of them? I think you should keep one at least, and I'm going to go Dominic Lovett. Now, the offensive line, again, a couple of tweaks here. The first 5 are as expected. So is Dan Skipper. So is Giovanni Manu. And I was impressed. I think Manu was better this last week, starting or really being the second string left tackle opposite of Skipper. Again, I think Skipper continues to help himself. I thought he had another strong performance. Still not a people mover, but I really do like him in pass pro. Outside of that, though, that's where things got tricky. And I ended up keeping, of course, Miles Frazier here because eventually, hopefully, he gets back. But we're going to have to count him towards 53, even though we don't know what he looks like. But I'm very high on Miles Frazier coming out of LSU. So I'm optimistic. He was my number 8 interior offensive lineman coming into the draft. However, I'm going to keep KO'd. KO didn't play a ton this past game, and I do think, again, KO is still a really good people mover as a run blocker, and I think he showed that this past game. There still are losses in there, specifically late, that I don't love, but I just didn't see enough consistency with guys like Nitain Mutai, who I thought looked very shaky in pass protection, gave up an edge way too quickly, where someone like that would leap him for a spot. Plus, the guard flexibility is so valuable right now with some of the injuries that could pop up to play both spots that I think the Lions will really value that with KO. And I just feel very comfortable they're going to keep him around. And then finally, I'm going to go Michael Neese. I mean, this was the battle between him or Kingsley Eguakon. I still feel like I have a slight lean towards Michael Neese, who I think performed well again. Neese doesn't maybe offer the flexibility that Kingsley can as a guard, and I don't think he's nearly the mauler that Kingsley is, and he doesn't maybe play with the same strain that Kingsley does, and Kingsley had a much better preseason this year than the past year, so I don't make it sound like he didn't get better because I think he did, and I think he finished really strong. I just think if I was in a spot, especially now with the Graham Glasgow injury, one, I want a guy that I trust at backup center. So it's one of those two. And on top of that, if I was in that position, I don't really value as much as the guard flexibility right now. It's more about who do I just trust to be more consistent in pass protection as a backup center. And I would trust Michael Neese much more at this point. I like Kingsley. I hope there's a way to get him back on the practice squad after seeing his growth this year. It's just right now, I would personally lean towards Michael Neese with a little more confidence in what he can do in the meantime, while a guy Graham Glasgow may be down. Or the Lions, may slide Ratledge into that spot, and that could shake things up a bit. But as of now, I think you go with the more true backup center, and I think you're okay with losing some of that flexibility. Onto the defense side of the ball, though, we'll go to the defensive line. We're also going to include one of these 3 players on the 53. I'm just going to call it Lee McNeil. Doesn't really matter which one. 2 players go to return IR. That's going to be Malcolm Rodriguez. We'll say Josh Pascal, whichever 2 of the 3, and we'll say Lee McNeil gets through the 53-man roster. Okay, we know they're keeping these guys around, so we'll count him towards his 53. So on the defensive line, we're going to go DJ Reader, Alec Williams, Roy Lopez. Broderick Martin is still going to stick around for me. Not perfect this past game. There's a couple times he ended up on his back, got tripped up a little bit, trying to deal with a block that would sustain and kind of drive him out of the play. But what I did like is he showed an ability to just be a presence still upfield, even in this past game. He did get an edge a few times as a pass rusher, and he's shown some stack ability. I don't think he gets pushed off a spot through doubles as easily as we've seen in the past. And for that reason, I think Martin has trended up consistently, and I think he finished the way that he needed to give himself an opportunity to make the 53-man roster. I don't feel super comfortable or confident with this, but right now I think the trajectory that he's on, I could see the Lions keeping him around. Plus, I know we're kind of deep at interior defensive line at this time, but as a true backup nose tackle, beyond really Roy Lopez, who isn't the biggest guy on the inside, I think it does make some sense. And then I'm also going to throw Miles Adams in here. To me, Miles Adams has earned this. And if I had to choose between the 2, I would go Miles Adams. He played, to me, his best game this past week, 3 pressures. He is constantly a presence in the backfield, but he also did a lot against the run, a lot of stack and shed, a lot of wins versus single blocks. You might be able to get some success on him against double teams. That's fair. I really hate the fact I don't have Chris Smith on here because of the consistency that he gave to us this past year, but I think Roy Lopez kind of smoothes some of that out a little bit. And again, I think Chris Smith got better in this year's preseason specifically, right? He had a little bit of juice as a rusher. He was battling double teams. Like, these front 7 guys were fighting. They were fighting in this, and I really appreciated that. I'm hoping we can find a way to get him back on the practice squad, and I think that would be an excellent get back to the practice squad. But as of now, I have those 6 plus Lee McNeil. At backer, no change. Campbell, Duracell, Cunningham, Barnes, Stewart, Nowaski. Nowaski's coming off his best performance. He was outstanding off ball and on ball. Stewart, of course, what he does in every facet. Plus, he took a good return to the 50 after great blocking. So that makes a ton of sense. Again, Malcolm will say he's on return IR. At cornerback now, I'm going to go Terrion Arnold, DJ Reed, Amik Robertson, Khalil Dorsey, and Avonte Maddox. We'll count those 5. Maddox can kind of play safety too. We'll go with those 5 because that's how they played during the preseason. My next in at cornerback would have been Tyson Russell. Honestly, I know that may sound surprising. Mainly that's based on game performance, a little bit less on practice because I wasn't there for all those days, but also the days I was there, I didn't think he was great. But Tyson Russell had the one interception. It was kind of an awkward pick, but I loved his run support, the feistiness that he would play with there, the effort that he gave, the length that he has at cornerback. He would be next up for me, and I considered him. Really hate not having here is Lawrence Strickland. Last year I had Lawrence Strickland in. That was like the one I got right that I was very fired up about. This year I said Hallett getting in before all of this began, and I think Hallett will make the team. But I would love to keep Strickland as well. And I think there's a case. The last kind of decision I came down to was between cutting a guy like Broderick Martin and keeping Strickland, or vice versa. That was a tough decision for me to make. Ultimately, I decided to cut Lawrence Strickland and roll with Branch, Kirby Joseph, Rocky Sin, and Eric Hallett. I think Eric Hallett is going to make the team, and they kind of left him at safety this past game, and I think he's a better safety than a true cornerback, but his versatility just adds so much to this team. This feels like the type of player the Lions would want, and I think he played really well this past week. And Nick Whiteside struggled a lot at cornerback in this past game. Lawrence Strickland, I would understand the Lions keeping him. I really would. He played so fast past week. He played with so much anticipation. Honestly, him versus Rocky Sin, you can make the case that he is much more comfortable as a coverage piece in coverage right now in zone than a guy like Rocky Sin is. I think you could still buy into that. Just because of how raw it feels for Rocky Sin, things just kind of happening fast. How do I play my eyes? That kind of thing. Lawrence Strickland, you may trust a little bit more for that. And for that reason, you can make the case to just keep him around. And I think that's a fair case to make. For me, though, he was literally number 54. I decided to just stick him right on the outside and not put him into 53 because, of course, they're going to keep Rocky in here, and I think they are viewing him more as a safety than anything. So that was the toughest. That was truly the toughest decision to make. Edge, Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, Al-Quadin Muhammad, and I'm going to go Nate Lynn as the final guy. I think, he came on a little bit late. He was very slippery in this game, a lot of get off. Of course, he was super productive as a rusher, had one really nice kind of stack and shed win against the run, but he didn't dominate when the edge was set towards his way. But at the same time, that's not really what I expect. I think this is truly keeping him as a third down rushing option. This could change if Za'Darius is signed. The tough part was really picking him over Isaac Ukwu because I think Ukwu is coming off of his best performances the last 2 of the preseason, and Ukwu was nasty against the run, tough, driving guys backwards, had a lot of wins in there, a lot of effort wins as a rusher. I know that we had Ukwu back on the practice squad last year after we waived him. I think he put in a strong enough performance again this season where that may not happen, but I'm hoping that we can kind of repeat that trend and get him back once again. And that's the reason I decided to go with Lynn over Ukwu because I think there's a better path potentially to getting a guy like Isaac Ukwu back. Now, again, that's the tough part, right? It's like, okay, what's more likely you get back, Broderick Martin or Lawrence Strickland, right? You might lose Lawrence Strickland in this, and that's the worst part of all of this. But it's tough, man. The numbers are difficult going through. The special teams, of course, is the 3 that we all expect. So that is the 53-man roster. Again, we're counting Aleem McNeil because one of these guys are going to have to count towards the 53 at least. And we do have some guys that are banged up here that are still on this 53-man roster. Tough decisions were made right on the outside looking in for me. Pat O'Connor, I ended up taking Pat O'Connor off. Pat O'Connor, to me, I know they love his versatility. I could be off on this one by far because they may just like him more than what I've seen. I just don't feel like I saw enough in the preseason to keep his spot necessarily. Now, maybe you could say him over Broderick Martin. I could understand making that case because I could see where the Lions would trust him a little bit more with his flexibility, and they love his juice and the energy that he plays with. The dude played nose tackle. He did so much for him last year. It's hard to cut a guy like that. But I see a path to getting him potentially back. I really do. And on top of that, I just don't think he produced consistently enough in the preseason. Like, to me, he showed a ton of effort. He understood his gap assignment. Sometimes, though, he just didn't make the play. He had one play this past game where, he was kind of driving his man out of the play, walled him off, but then didn't make the tackle and it squeezed forward for about 5 yards. It was things like that. So I love me some Pat O'Connor. But just for numbers' sake, I kept him off. Lawrence Strickland would be next up. Tyson Russell was right on the outside looking in. Of course, Jackson Meeks right on the outside looking in as well. Zach Horton falls into that category. Hendon Hooker. There are some good players that I let go here. Kingsley Egukan. This is tough, man. So hopefully we can get all those guys back on the 53 again. And also hopefully hoping for the best for Ezekiel Turner. It sounds like it could be an Achilles tear, which is awful. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my final 53 prediction. It will not be correct, so don't worry. All right, there's going to be a lot of things wrong with this, but that's where I'm at with it after watching the last game. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.